Okay, so we are back and we are in code challenge 5. So 5, 6, 7, and 8, we're going to take a look at the code, but we're going to use two numbers and subtract one number from the other number. So that's really our focus here. And we're going to see if the code changes a bit, if it doesn't, and if it doesn't, why it doesn't. So let's go ahead and take a look at the challenge. So again, we're going to subtract two numbers. This time we're going to declare the first number as 12, the next number as 4, and of course we're going to store those numbers in variables. Now, sometimes you get the question is, um, what do the variables, what should they look like? And I always say they should represent what it is you're trying to store, okay? So in this sense, we are trying to store numbers. Well, then what if I just use the same variable for each number? And the thing is with that, that will become problematic. And I'm going to show us why when we get to the actual code. So with that being said, hold on to that question, even if I raised it, because it is something that we need to take a look at. So we're going to store both of those numbers in their own variables. We will declare a variable called diff, D-I-F-F, meaning that we want the difference between the two numbers. And we want to first declare that at 0, and then change that value by subtracting 1 from the other number. And then we want to display those numbers as they are. So again, looking at the pseudo code and the flowchart, let's take a look at how this would look on the player sheet. So from the pseudocode perspective, we want to, of course, have the begin and end structures. Then the display element should say subtract two numbers. And even if it says subtract 12 from 4, that's okay. We want to make sure that the user, the person using the program, is aware of what's supposed to go on. And then we have the three storage elements. So we're going to create three variables, num1, num2, and diff. And we're going to assign them each a specific integer, 12, 4, and 0, respectively. Then we're going to perform the action sequence. So diff equals num1 minus num2. Now, you could also do, if you wanted to challenge your learners to say num2 minus num1, that's perfectly okay as well. The computer does understand negative numbers. And then of course we want to display the difference, so we're just going to go ahead and display or show diff. And then the flowchart element looks very similar to the pseudocode. It's just using the icons, the oval shaped for beginning and end, the rectangle shaped for storage and action, and again, the parallelogram for displaying what we want to display. Okay, so with that being said, let's take a look at the code. And the code looks like this. So we're going to go ahead and create num1 and num2 and diff. And so what we wanted to do is take a look at something. So what if we just said the first variable is num and the second variable is num, because they're both storing numbers, okay? So that makes perfect sense. But what if we did this? Let's take a look at how this would end up. So we have 12 and 4. So now what this is it it will only look at, well, let me go back and say the code or the computer reads each line of instruction sequentially. So if in the code you change a variable assignment, if you change the value of that variable, then that's the value that it will work with. So at this point, once it reaches num equals 4, it's going to disregard this num equals 12, okay? Because we're using the same variable. And if that were true, then num minus num, 4 minus 4 is 0. So if we wanted to test this, we would just run it, and 4 minus 4 is 0. And that's exactly what we should get, because it's only seeing this 4 because that's the new value of the variable. So that's why we need to create two different variables, one for each number. And so we have now num1 and num2 for number 1 and number 2. And then if we run the subtraction on that, we should get 8. And there we go. Hey, I still remember some of my math. So with that being said, I'll see you in challenge number 6. Take care.